What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of asking fitness questions that nobody asked for the answer to. On today's episode, we're pitting the Smith machine against the barbell, and we're going to find out which one is more difficult. In order to conduct today's experiment, we're going to load 135 pounds on a barbell and see how many bench press reps we can get. Then we're going to repeat the same process with the Smith machine. Load up 135 pounds and see how many reps we can get. And then we'll know conclusively which one is more difficult, because my experiments are perfect, and this is science.
I am a scientist! You're a scientist! Science!
So I've got some theories forming. So I'm thinking, barbell bench press, you have to use stabilizer muscles, a little bit of your core. There's extra activation going on when you're using the barbell. Just more muscles are involved. So it only makes sense that you would get less reps when you're doing the barbell, right? Well, as much as that logic makes sense, I actually believe that I'm gonna get less reps on the Smith machine. The barbell and the Smith machine are the pressing movements that I've been training for a few weeks now, and I've seen some strength disparities between the two. And typically, I can actually do more weight with the regular barbell bench press than I can with the Smith machine. But there's a big caveat to that. I always do the barbell before I do the Smith machine. So by doing those first few sets on the barbell, is that taking enough strength away from me that I can't perform the same way on the Smith machine? Well, I think that's one thing that could be attributing to those results. I also think that by having use of those extra stabilization muscles and not being on a guided path, sometimes you can just press up more weight. You can find an angle or a bar path that's just a little bit more comfortable, and it allows you to perform just a little bit better. But is that all in my head, or is that reality? Well, today we're gonna find out. All right, first up, we have the Smith machine, 135 pounds loaded up on the bar. So this is your last chance to drop down in the comments and let me know which is more difficult, the Smith machine or the barbell bench press. Let's do it. Honestly, that's way less than I thought it was gonna be. I thought we were gonna do like 20 something reps. We're gonna give ourselves plenty of rest while we get this barbell set up and see how many reps we can do doing that. All right, 135 pounds loaded up. Let's see how many reps we can get. So clearly, barbell bench press must be much easier, right? Well, I think there are some scenarios and some caveats to that. I've been doing barbell bench press recently, but I've also been doing Smith press. And while you're doing the Smith press, you don't have to use those stabilization muscles, but you are on that straight bar path when you're using the Smith press. And I truly do believe that that's the reason that you can get more reps on a barbell bench press. But I do think there are some scenarios where that wouldn't be the case. If you're somebody who never does barbell bench press and only does Smith press, I think that training that specific exercise, you're gonna have more strength doing that exercise. I'm sure a lot of you have experienced going back to doing barbell bench press, or maybe the first couple times you did barbell bench press, those stabilization muscles and your muscles are just kind of shaky, and maybe the workout feels slightly unnatural, but over time it becomes more natural, your bar path changes a little bit, your form changes, and it becomes just more comfortable in general. At least with me, the Smith machine feels really good right out of the gate. But as you get deeper into the rep range with the Smith machine, you can't recruit those other muscles that you can with the barbell. I feel like it puts more tension directly on the pecs themselves. You don't get quite as much tricep and shoulder activation that you can get with the barbell. And ultimately, I think that led to the results that we saw today. I can't definitively say that one is easier or more difficult than the other for everybody that's out there, but specifically for me, specifically on the pressing movement, the flat pressing movement that we did today, the barbell is just easier. But does that mean that one is better than the other at building muscle? Well, it's kind of hard to say. If you can do more reps and more weight on the barbell with good form, then I feel like there is potential for it to grow greater muscle growth. But looking at it from a purely scientific standpoint, if the Smith machine really is hitting a targeted muscle and it's putting more stress and time under tension under that specific muscle, then wouldn't that lead to greater hypertrophy? Well, here's my final takeaway and what I would suggest and give my opinion to you guys. No matter whether you're doing barbell or Smith, honestly, I don't really think it matters that much. As long as you train them in the same way. You're using progressive overload and you're taking both exercises in a close proximity to failure. I think they both hit the chest in a similar enough way that if you were to train them properly, then you're gonna yield very, very similar results. But as far as one being more difficult than the other, honestly, I'm gonna have to go with the Smith machine being more difficult. You're gonna target the muscle just a little bit better, and by being guided by rails and being on that singular bar path and not being able to adjust it as you get deeper in that rep range, then it's just gonna lead to a more difficult exercise. And by difficult, I mean just getting a specific amount of reps or hitting the highest reps that you can. Things that excel in the barbell bench press may not excel in the Smith machine. For example, the Smith machine, you can just rack it. So it's really easy to take to failure, especially when you don't have a spotter around. But you can have a barbell that has safety, so you can still take things to failure, but it's not quite as safe in my opinion. I also like the fact that on a Smith machine, if I do a seated overhead shoulder press, the fact that it is locked on that bar path, I feel like I get a better shoulder workout. And if I were to do it with a barbell and having to unrack it and move it forward and potentially take my back off of my seated position, I won't have that stability or that ability to push my shoulders as hard as I can. So there are some nuances and caveats that go along with either of these exercises, but I think today's experiment can show that just because logic should tell you one thing, doesn't always happen that way in the real world. If you guys enjoyed the video, click on one of the other videos on the screen and don't forget to subscribe, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.